It's time for Drummer Nation. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the 30th episode of Drummer Nation. For this edition, I'm very happy to have as a guest Sherrie Maricle. Sherrie has been a fixture on the New York music scene since the mid-1980s. She's had long stints with the New York Pops Orchestra, has taught for an extended period of time at NYU, and is a founding member and the band leader for a great big band called the Diva Jazz Orchestra. We'll leave it to her to tell you about it, but before that, I'd like for you to hear some of this band. It's just outstanding. Another point is that I've been falling behind on issues in that I have more content than I've been making available. So I'm very happy people are calling me, wanting to be on the show. I have plenty of issues already recorded, so I'm going to double up for a while at least and go to every week. So be sure to look for that. Stay tuned for Sherrie after this. I'm proud to now welcome Sabian Cymbals as an official sponsor of Drummer Nation. The former Crescent Vanguard series are now widely available as part of the legendary Sabian HH models. HH cymbals are traditionally hand-hammered into shape and sound by Sabian craftsmen. Each cymbal receives between 2,000 and 4,000 hammer blows, resulting in increased musicality, tone and complexity, and unmatched sonic texture favored by drummers in the know for generations. Find out more about the Vanguard series and all other Sabian models at Sabian.com. Musician, designer, and award-winning innovator Ron Dennett relentlessly pursues quality of sound. Every Dennett classic drum is crafted completely by hand, carefully assembled one at a time, and personally signed by Ron himself. The shell weights are tuned for optimal performance, giving each one inherent resonance, full-range dynamics, and a pure, rich tone. All Dennett classic snare drums feature soft, contoured beds that are deep cut to eliminate snare buzz and accommodate the use of wider 42-strand snares. Compare a Dennett with others in its class, and you'll discover that the alternative is compromise. Hi, Michael Vosbein again with Drummer Nation, and my guest today is Sherrie Maricle, who is the leader of a wonderful jazz band called the Diva Jazz Orchestra. What's unusual and different about that orchestra?
Well, number one, it was started by a great drummer named Stanley Kay, is the most unique thing. Back in 1992, Stanley was the assistant drummer for Buddy Rich and manager of the Buddy Rich Band from 1947 on and off until Buddy passed. But he decided he wanted to do this and get back into the big band business, and knew how I played and liked how I played, so asked me if I knew other women that played like me, and I said I sure do. And we had an audition in New York City and in June of 92, and about 40 women came from all around the world, and we put together a 15-piece band that happens to be all women.
You're now the leader of the band, and we'll get to that in a second, but where are you from?
I was born in Buffalo, New York. I grew up in a town called Endicott, New York. That's around Binghamton, people might be more familiar with. Binghamton University, where I went to undergraduate school. And it was a great part, southern tier of New York State, right on the PA border. Great place to grow up.
And you have some extensive education as well, right?
I do, yeah. Fortunately, when I was done with, I started out actually with one semester at Ithaca College studying percussion with the great Gordon Stout. And that proved to be a little too costly, so I finished my undergrad degree at Binghamton University. Then my plan was just to move to New York City to play drums. I was like, I just want to play, I just want to play. And a bass player named Michael Moore, great Michael Moore, said to me, well, I teach at this school called NYU. This was in 1985. Why don't you consider going there? And I actually said, what's NYU? But I went and checked it out and auditioned, and I got a scholarship to finish my master's degree, and then I got a doctoral fellowship to do my PhD in jazz studies.
So you have a PhD in jazz studies.
I do. It sounds really weird, those two things together, but it was actually a really interesting degree path that I didn't plan to pursue, but because the fellowship became available, I became suddenly interested. And it was a jazz studies and composition.
So you're another drummer who can write. There aren't very many of those.
Yes, I know all the notes, not just the drum notes.
I just did an interview with Dennis McCrell the other day, and he's a great writer as well, as you know. And you don't have a lot of drummers who write big band music.
Yeah, I love Dennis, and he wrote one of my favorite charts that we have in our library. He wrote a totally super swinging chart on In a Mellow Tone. I play it all the time. It's really great.
He's a great guy. So you finished your doctorate while you were in New York. I imagine you were developing your playing career as well.
Yeah, two amazing things that happened. In 1990, when I met Stanley Kay, where I first was introduced to him, just on a random gig. I was the drummer in like a pit orchestra for the anniversary of the Schubert Theater in New Haven. I also met a man named Skitch Henderson, who was the founder and conductor of the New York Pops Orchestra. And this was in May of 92, and Skitch said to me, I said goodbye to him. He wasn't very happy with the orchestra, but I knew, oh, this is Skitch Henderson. Let me take an opportunity and just thank him. So I did, and he said, oh, you dear, I want you to come play with the New York Pops. And I thought to myself, sure. But sure enough, in August, he called me, and he said, I'm going to let you play the season, and that's your audition, and it's a season at Carnegie Hall. And I could not have been more thrilled and terrified and elated all at once. But that was a tremendous opportunity. I met Stanley Kay, who formed Diva, and Skitch Henderson, who gave me my, so far going on 28-year career playing with the New York Pops. Yeah, one other neat thing that happened at NYU, I had a chance to run the, NYU had an affiliation with the Village Gate, the famous jazz club, the Village Gate on Bleecker Street. And I ran a jam session there for 8 years, every Saturday from 2 to 6. As you can imagine, the amount of musicians and connections just from running that session I got to meet for that 8-year period. I can't remember what year the gate closed, but it was up until the year that it closed. Probably, if I had to pick, my two favorite kinds of playing are trio, piano trio, and big band. I'm not 100% sure why that is. I find both very freeing in different ways, and also incredibly exciting and open in unique ways. One of my role models, and actually somebody who was my teacher, well, I was really fortunate to study with Mel Lewis when I was at New York University. My lesson, and when I was, let's say I moved there in 85, I was like 21 or 22, and studying with Mel Lewis, my lesson was play the third set with the Mel Lewis Jazz Orchestra.
Really?
More than once at the Vanguard. Talk about a lesson, just sitting in a band like that, coming from Endicott, New York, and suddenly, oh yeah, here, go back there and sit down and play with this band. It was like the most life-altering, eye-opening experience I ever had. I never felt anything like that.
I can imagine. That's a great band, and suddenly you're steering the boat, driving the bus, and that's got to feel terrific back there.
Well, at that point in my development, I was so shocked because I never played in a band of players that phrased like that, of that level player, coming from upstate New York. They're just that wasn't that available there. They're great bands, but very different. So that was transformative.
Mel's obviously a giant influence on you. I think I hear some Buddy in there too. I've been listening to your playing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Buddy Rich is the reason I play drums. When I was 11, my teacher took me to see him, and he had his band called the Killer Force Orchestra, and I didn't even know what jazz was. And I went and I raced home and told my mom, I'm going to be a big band drummer, and I love jazz. And she's like, sure, pat on the head, But it's true, and that's all I ever wanted to do.
Well, that's terrific. Now, how long have you been leading the band?
I was instrumental and a co-founder. Originally, there was a leader for a few months, a woman named Elisa Geis. Stanley K had in mind to have like a kind of a Dizzy Gillespie vibe front person who liked, who had a lot of singing and dancing abilities and was a really great show person. But she was in a Miss Saigon on Broadway and great singer, but not particularly as jazz oriented as we needed. So while Stanley, in between the cracks, while Stanley was thinking about what to do, one of Stanley's other clients, an artist, great singer and dancer named Maurice Hines, said, well, Sherrie's your leader. Make her your leader. You have no problems. And so Stanley did. So then I became the leader right after that and ever since. So a bonus the whole time.
Now, what's the difference between leading a big band and playing drums in one? Because drummers always think they're the leaders anyway, right?
I consider that the extreme joy. And the minute I get to sit down and play is the moment I remember why I do all the other things. It's the business part of being a leader of any size band. But the bigger the band, the more the headaches. I always say in 25 years, but I've been leading the band, but in band leader years, then it's like 500 years.
Oh, I see. Like the dog years to people years.
Like dog. Yeah, it's just it's all the other parts, and I'm lucky to have help from one of our trumpet players serves as a manager and road manager, and we have some other people helping with tech aspects of things you need to do this day in social media. But it's dealing with personalities, and logistics of a large group is really complicated.
Didn't you guys just play the Hollywood Bowl recently? Or?
We did. We had two really great performances this year. The Bowl was one. It was our third time there, and every time it's one of the unique and thrilling experiences because of the stage spins. So you kind of start as the stage is spinning towards the audience. Have you played there?
No, but I've been there many times.
Yeah, so you kind of start, your intro like halfway through the spin, and when you hit the audience, it's really unique and fun. And we also got to play this year at the Kennedy Center at the NEA Jazz Masters Award Ceremony. So that was quite an honor to be chosen to do that.
Absolutely. Now, how about the book, which to the mere mortals out there, the book means the music, the charts. Who does most of the writing?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. Obviously, to have any kind of unique band, you have to have all original music and/or arrangements, and we have commissioned everything since day one, and we have several hundred charts in our library. At the beginning, it was a guy named John LaBarbera who wrote a lot for Buddy Rich's band, who was Stanley's friend, and he was a co-founder of the band. Tommy Newsom. Great Tommy Newsom from the Tonight Show with Carson. He wrote a lot of music for us. Stanley K actually wrote a lot of the charts and had it arranged by different people. Scott Whitfield, LA-based trombonist, amazing writer. Ellen Rowe, one of the jazz directors at the University of Michigan. A guy in town named John DiMartino writes for us quite a bit. Lee, and people in the band, Lee Pilzer, Noriko Uedas, and myself, of course, I do some writing.
Now, John LaBarbera is Joe's brother, right?
Yeah, and Pat, yeah.
Right, Joe LaBarbera, the great drummer. Now, You're also teaching, I presume.
I did teach for a number of years. I teach privately right now, and I do a lot of guest conducting for all state bands and some adjudication, and teach at a jazz camp once in a while. But I did teach for 15 years at New York University. When I was part of my doctoral fellowship was teaching there. I started 2 percussion ensembles there, and then worked with percussion ensembles, and also I was always the graduate assistant to the jazz program, so did a lot of teaching there. And then I started to lead the education programs for the New York Pops, and I did that for about 10 years. And then when I got to the half-century point in my life, I decided I wanted to turn things around and focus a lot more on I lead more than one band, on the bands I'm running, and Diva's turning 25. We're doing a big project through Artist Share. So I've been working, I'm refocusing my attention.
When you were teaching, was there a core philosophy around your teaching? Was it mostly jazz focused? Did you cover all the styles, or what was your program like?
Even in all my lessons, and even what I would teach today, I mean, of course, certainly depending on the level of the student, but at NYU, I especially thought it was very important for all the students to find something they're incredibly passionate about and work on that with all of their heart and attention, but realizing that to make a living, simply saying, would you like to play in a Broadway pit for X, Y, and Z show, that you have to know a lot of different styles of music to even to be a functional drummer and get a job. So I was always really hammering that home. No matter how much you love jazz, you got to do the other stuff.
I ask this of all the educators. It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is the music industry has changed dramatically in our lifetimes. People perceive that there's not as much opportunity as there used to be. How do you square that with maintaining a positive outlook and the kids having reason to be optimistic? In other words, where do they go when they get out of school?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think any any educator who's sane would struggle with that same thought in their mind. And I just did a Sabian Education Network with 4 great drummers at UArts in Philly, and we were all talking about the same thing with about 30 drum set teachers. And yeah, I used to tell my students, listen, if you don't learn this, what I'm trying to explain to you, you're going to get out into the professional field, and I will be trying to get the same gig as you, and I'm going to get it because you're not listening to me, like just to be competitive. I find a lot of people find their own paths, and I just said that at a camp recently. It's explaining, as you just said, that the opportunities are less. It's just a simple fact. There are less gigs. A lot of people are finding ways to make their own situations, creating a lot more original music. Now, how that works out financially for everybody is yet to be seen, how the world's going to evolve artistically.
Well, I don't think the early pioneers of swing and jazz, bebop, and I don't think they had any concern with how it was going to work out financially.
I agree with you, but like we just said, there was a lot more opportunity to play that music. I can't say for sure, but I think that it was paid a lot more. And like in New York City, unless you're headlining someplace, it's always play for the door. Or somebody just offered me with Diva a 60-40 split, and I said, why would the club get 40%? I said, no, that's not how it goes. So there's that, But I think one thing is always to say to kids who say, yeah, I want to play. Who do you want to play with? That's important. Some of them say, I don't know, I just want to play. I said, no, do you want to play with Sonny Rollins or Herbie Hancock or Chick Corea? I wanted to play with the Woody Herman band. That was my fantasy. Didn't work out, but it was a goal, and that's how I focused my playing style and attention, because that was one of my dreams.
That's right. You have your dreams and you set your goals, and then you take it from there, and life takes you where it will. But you remain dedicated to the instrument. Somehow it works out.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So what's next for you in the band and you in general?
As I mentioned earlier, Diva has embarked on this 25th anniversary project through a crowd funding platform called ArtistShare. You may be familiar with Maria Schneider's won quite a few Grammy Awards through there, and them. It's a great organization to work with. It's kind of it's not necessarily a record label. They're not promoters. They're not managers. They're not agents. They're a little bit of all the good things that all of those organizations and people used to offer to artists. ArtistShare does in some degree or another, but the artist maintains all of their rights and ownership of everything. So we're doing a big recording project in October, all original music written by the band, exclusively by 10 composers in the band. So that's a big deal for us. We have some college residencies coming up. We headline once a year at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, doing a bunch of touring, a lot of great stuff.
Well, you've got it going on in every direction. Career as a teacher, though you may not be teaching now, drummer, leader, industry person, because that's a whole different bag than playing the drums. And I can only salute you and thank you for doing my show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for all you've done for the industry too, and drums. It's great to have you doing this for us.
Thank you so much, and let's do another one, okay?
Okay, thanks, Mike.
All right, Sherrie, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.
This is your host, Michael Vosbein, and I want to thank our friends at Atlanta Pro Percussion, Danette Classic Drums, Sabian Cymbals, and Classic Drummer Magazine. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the 30th episode of Drummer Nation. For this edition, I'm very happy to have as a guest Sherrie Maricle. Sherrie has been a fixture on the New York music scene since the mid-1980s. She's had long stints with the New York Pops Orchestra, has taught for an extended period of time at NYU, and is a founding member and the band leader for a great big band called the Diva Jazz Orchestra. we'll leave it to her to tell you about it. But before that, I'd like for you to hear some of this band. It's just outstanding. Another point is that I've been falling behind on issues in that I have more content than I've been making available. So I'm very happy people are calling me, wanting to be on the show. I have plenty of issues already recorded. So I'm going to double up for a while at least and go to every week. So be sure to look for that. Stay tuned for Sherrie after this.